If you're a beginner and you'd like to try drawing with water-soluble pencils, or an experienced artist looking for a new medium to sketch with, then this video is for you. I'm Alfred Angelo, and I've been using water-soluble pencils for sketching for many years. Once you get used to them, they're a very fast and fun way to complete a sketch. If you're interested in watercolor, you might take a look at my Intro to Watercolor videos, which are also on YouTube. It's good to get a range of pencils to start with, and they range from 2B up to 12B. As the number gets higher, the graphite is darker. And as you can see here, if I wash out the 2B, it's very, very light. When I wash out the 4B, it's a little bit darker. The 6B is darker still. The 8B is much darker than the 6B. And the 12B is almost like ink. It is so dark black. When I'm drawing, I tend to use the 6B to start with and then go to the 8B. And occasionally I'll use the 12B for the really, really dark areas of a drawing, but sometimes you don't even need to use the 12B. You also want to get a range of watercolor brushes, several sizes. This is a size 10, and a couple of sizes smaller than that also are good for doing some detail work. You want watercolor brushes that are bright, meaning when you push the hairs to the side, it bounces right back into its original shape and comes to a nice fine point. I find those are the best watercolor brushes to use. For a quick demonstration on how to use the water-soluble graphite pencils, I'll start with the 2B. Basically, you want to start with the lighter tones and work darker and darker. So I'll just sketch something here. This is a 2B. And let's say it's a ball sitting on a surface with a cast shadow. Once your initial sketch is done, the next thing to do is put water and create a light wash so you can build it up. When you put your brush in the water, always tap it quickly to the paint rag so you don't have an extra amount of water on your drawing. And then as you can see, the 2B is a very, very light pencil. A little more water and wash that out. And it almost doesn't do anything. It's very, very light. I prefer to not use 2B pencils. I like to start with a 6B. So if I was going to do this drawing the way I usually work, I would start with a 6B, which is darker. Again, put my initial sketch in, dip my brush in the water, and you can see the difference between the 2B and the 6B pencil. If you want to feather an edge, for instance, if I want to feather this edge of the shadow here, clean your brush off in the water quickly and just add some clean water and feather it out so you don't get a hard edge on that line. So this is dry now, and I've used the 6B, so then I can go in with my 8B and work a little more in the area where I want the darker shade. After a while, you get used to how much pencil to put down for how much darkness you're going to get out of it. Here's a really much darker area. Again, using some clean water on the edge, I can feather that edge, and then much darker area in the shadow of that sphere that I'm drawing. And again, feathering the edge so I don't get a hard edge along that edge of the shadow. And then I let that dry for a minute. So now I can go in with my 9B, put some more dark lines in because I want to get that shadow even darker. Darken up that shadow a bit. Darken up the cast shadow at the 9B, leaving some of the lighter tones uncovered. That's some of the beauty of this, is to have a whole range of tones from really dark to very, very light and almost non-existent. Now, with these water-soluble sticks, the one thing you can't really do with the pencils is to take color right off of the stick. If I wet the brush and wash and apply it to the stick, it's almost like painting with watercolor. I've got dark tone applying with the brush right off of the stick into the drawing. So I can wash that tone out and I get a really nice deep dark tone. Again, some clean water on this edge to feather that into the shadow, and then put some dark tone on that shadow side of that ball that I'm painting. If you want to remove some water, if you have too much water, you can simply dry your brush out on your paint rag or paper towel and then pull it over that excess water that was put down. I like to roll it, and that removes some of the water. This tone will dry. Now, to pop out the white edge of that ball, because I'm on white paper, all I really need to do, and I like to do it with the brush, is to pull some tone right off of the stick and then use clean water to feather that. The outer edge. And that helps pop that white side of the ball out. Here are a couple of quick sketches, quickly outlining the shapes, the outlining of the head and shoulders, a couple of indications of where the eyes and nose are on the model, not drawing too much detail, because when you wash it with the brush, a lot of that detail is going to disappear. You can see where the light tone is washed out here, spreading it around with the brush in here, in the neck of the skeleton, and in the face, and a little bit of shading outside to highlight, to pop out the white edge of the top of the skeleton's skull. And then going in with a darker pencil, or continuing with the 8B pencil, drawing back into it, and then bringing in the second darker tone. You can see this lighter tone here, and a secondary darker tone. So you generally work from the lightest tones and then slowly get darker and darker until you're satisfied with some of the dark parts, sort of the neck vertebrae in here, and the nostrils and the eye and the skull. Here's a more elaborate drawing done, a profile portrait with the water-soluble pencils. And I always start the same way, quick sketch. You can see some of the lines here, some of the remaining lines around the face. Draw what I want the forms to be as a guide. Then using my brush and washing in some of these lighter areas. Basically everything had a light wash on it. When that dries, I go back in with the 8B pencil, put some more lines in, and worked on the area that I wanted to be secondary, a second level of darkness in here, back here, some places around the eye, a little bit by the nose, letting that dry, then going back in with my 12B pencil because I wanted to finish this off more like a finished drawing rather than leave it just as a quick loose sketch. Her hair was so great to draw, I just couldn't stop drawing it. Again, putting in dark marks and then washing them in and filling in that area very dark around the eyes, under the nose, the top lip, under the chin. After you do this for a while, you'll get used to how many lines to put to get the darkness that you want. It's better to sort of underestimate, because you can always go back in and make it darker still. If you make it too dark to begin with, you really can't pull it back and lighten an area up. If you want to try drawing on tone paper, which is also a fun thing to do, I use white water-soluble chalk. This is a Watercolor white chalk, and I use it in a holder like this. And basically you do the same thing as you do with the black pencils, but you do it in reverse. So here's my initial drawing. Again, the brush. Wash the tone out. Wash out the tone of the cast shadow. Once you have your drawing worked out, using the white water-soluble pencil, put the highlights in. Let's highlight around it on this back side. You put those down. You can do the same thing. It's water soluble and it washes, but it does flatten a bit, so you'd have to put several layers of white to get it to really stand out. And there's a quick drawing of a box with a cast shadow and highlight. Here's a more elaborate drawing done on tone paper of a life model. And again, as usual, you can see the outline, a quick drawing of the model, her profile, her head and her features, and then going in with a brush and putting in the lighter tones, then going in and sketching more with the darker pencil. You can see some of those lines in here, especially up in the hair, and then putting in that second layer of darker wash, leaving these lighter tones. Again, tone paper is really nice because the middle tone is already there. You don't have to work to fill in a middle tone to bring out the highlights or the shadows. You're working from the middle tone up for the lights and down for the darks. So going in with my white chalk around the profile to pop the profile out, and then some white highlights on the ear, the jawline, and the neck and the shoulder to pop those out. And it gets pretty dimensional. And you can do this pretty quickly on tone paper. And then going in with my 12B and using, rather than drawing on the drawing, using the brush, taking the graphite right off of the 12B stick and painting the darks in. So as you can see, there's a lot of ways to try to use the water-soluble pencils for quick sketching, or for spending a little extra time and care and doing a more elaborate finished looking work with tone. Working on gray or toned paper, you can work really quickly because you don't have to spend time putting all the middle tone shading down. You start with the middle tone and you work down into the darks or up into the highlights to bring out the shapes that you want. Quick sketching, putting in light tones and then getting darker until you're satisfied with the way it looks. It's a lot of fun to do. The more you practice with it and get used to the brushes that you like, get used to the level of pencils that you like and the paper that you like, once you find your preferences, go with those and just keep having fun with it. The more you use it, the more comfortable it will be, and you'll just hopefully have a real lot of enjoyment sketching this way. It's quite different from sketching with just a regular pencil or charcoal or chalks, and a great way to sketch really quickly when you don't have a lot of time, or when you don't want to spend a lot of time obsessing over little details and you just want to get the idea down on paper.